they got me dancing again. I love that intro. This is Greg Kellogg, your host of Thursday Checkdown. I will be joined later by Tipp, but in the meantime, Tipp is here. We've got Tipp, but he's rushing to get home from work, and we've got a very special guest that we'll bring on. We've got two Tipps now. That's wonderful. Anyway, we've got some special things going on. We're joined tonight by DaveFantasy, a.k.a. Dave Stewart, 4for4.com football. Dave's been playing since 97. So I know we've crossed paths. I just can't remember when because I'm old and forgetful. And I apologize, Dave. Dave is also Tipp's second guest. Tipp invited Derek Brown, and he invited DaveFantasy. So our best guests have been Tipp's best guess. Tipp, did you have something you wanted to say about Dave?
And not only is Dave an awesome fantasy footballer, player, guy, he has got the celestial beard, guys. Look at the beard. Look at the magic that this guy has critiqued over years and years. How many years have you been growing that beard, Dave? I got to know.
Overall, probably 4 or 5 years, maybe a little bit longer.
And I bet you've been trimming it.
It gets cut shorter and then grows, and then there's ups and downs, but yeah.
And Dave also does DFS, which is something I really don't do. So we'll delve into that. But primarily, Dave, what we're going to talk about is the history. But before we do that, I've got to do some housekeeping. I am going to be a special guest on Big Draft Energy's podcast tomorrow night at 7:00. He works with drafters. I don't know if you know drafters or not. It's like the Canadian Underdog. They have going on a $2.5 million best ball tournament with a grand prize of $500,000. And we will be drafting a team tomorrow night. We'll talk about roster construction. We'll talk about, we're going to use, because it's my idea, and Biddy, or Big Draft Energy, Disco, he likes to use the zero running back. He likes to go wide receiver heavy. I'm old school. I like to do stud running back or hero running back.
Smart
there you
guy.
go.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think. But anyway, we're going to use a modified best player available. We will use ADP, but we're going to make sure in the first 2 rounds we get one wide receiver and one running back. Not whichever has the highest ADP when it's our turn to draft. We don't know our draft position until right before the show. We're going to take a quarterback and a tight end in rounds 3 and 4. And then after that, we're just going to use ADP and build the construction based on what we discuss ahead of time, whether it's a 2-6-8-4 or, it's a 20-man roster. So we're going to have probably 6 running backs and 8 wide receivers, though we may go with 9 wide receivers. Depending on the quarterbacks we get, we may only go with 2. Tight ends, we may go with 2 or 3. But we're going to build it tomorrow. And I want to try to get my audience to go over and support Big Draft Energy, because I think his biggest live audience has been like 35 people. I want to get him up past 50, 60 people for the show, for the live show, because he's going to be giving away a free ticket into this contest where you could win $500,000. So now the odds are long. We all know that. I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's rear end, but somebody's going to win it. Why not you? Okay. And all you have to do is go register an account at Drafters before the show, and then show up live 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night on Big Draft headquarters, I think it is. But if you follow at Disco Drafts 1, and he'd be on with us tonight, except he's got his show tonight at 7:00, so he can't be. Now, that said, we want to talk about the history of fantasy football, and that's why we bring in OGs. And that's why we've got DaveFantasy with us. Dave, do you mind me giving out your last name?
No, not at all. Go ahead.
Dave Stewart, 4for4. 4for4 has been around a long time. So they are a legit fantasy football site. They're not a fly-by-night site. And I'm going to let Tipp do the first question. You're muted, Tipp, so come off mute and ask the first question.
Dave. we know that you're a great fantasy football player. We get it, right? But I gotta get you to talk about your daughters, man. So tell us a little bit about what your girls are doing. I know it already, but you know what? The audience may not. I don't know if Greg does as well. It's a pretty cool story, guys. So take the floor, Dave. Tell us about your daughters.
Yeah. Okay. So I got my girls involved in fantasy football, and now it's sort of taken on a life of its own. They uh, they're known as the Sneaky Girls. They do their own weekly podcast during the season with Club Fantasy, FFL, the Women of Fantasy Football. Uh, so they're on with Kelly Singh every week, and they do a little flex picks for the week. And it's probably the most entertaining about 15 minutes of fantasy football anything that you can watch in a week. So I highly recommend you watching their show called The Sneaky Flex. It will be starting up again when the season starts. But
Send us the link. Send us a link, and we'll promote it.
I'd be happy to. That sounds awesome. Yeah, for sure. But I got them into fantasy football because I do a lot of drafts. For years I've been doing a lot of drafts. And so when they were younger, they were 4 years old, as a matter of fact, I kept trying to sit them in front of the TV for a movie. I'm like, you guys watch this movie because I've got a fantasy draft, and so several times over a couple of days, it was like that. It was like, you guys watch this while Dad does a fantasy draft. And then one time they said, when do we get to do a fantasy draft? And I was like, well, you want to do a fantasy draft? Let's do one right now. So I got them into just a random Yahoo public league, and I kind of helped them read the names of the players, but they picked everybody that they wanted, and they ended up winning that league.
That's cool.
Pretty amazing. It was Lamar Jackson's MVP season, though, and they got Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, that was a huge key to their victory. But they had
cool, though.
Really solid roster.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Let me ask you, you're from Oregon, right?
Well, I'm from Idaho, but we live kind of right on the Idaho-Oregon border. So.
Are you in one of those counties that's trying to go to Idaho? You heard about that, right?
Yeah,
There's some conservative counties in Oregon that want to be part of Idaho. I just think that's funny. But what I really want to know, it's a long way for you guys. Are you going to the Fantasy Football Expo? You taking the girls?
I will not be taking the girls, but I am hoping to make an appearance myself. Kind of checking the finances here to make sure it's going to be feasible. But
if you get there, look us up. Tipp. Well, I don't know about Tipp now. He's working so much, but I will definitely be there. I've got the ticket. I've got the hotel. And I just talked to Bob Long today. He's on vacation. He called me from Florida, from the beaches of Florida.
Nice.
My youngest daughter does not play fantasy football, but she's in her 40s. I mean, I'm old. But she wants to, if she can, go to the expo with me one day. She doesn't care about fantasy, but she wants to meet. So, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I took 7 years off from fantasy football. Totally gone. And then in 2021, I reached out and Scott got me into the Scott Fish Bowl, and I got into one other league. I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing content. And it was just fun. I just enjoyed it again. So in 2022, I went to the second year Scott Fish Bowl. And then last year I went to the Expo for the first time. And the way Scott and Bob and all the old guys treated me coming back just warms my heart. I mean, this truly is a great community. And while my daughter wants to meet these people because she saw how they treated me after being gone for 6-7 years. Is there anybody in this industry that you have not met personally, you've dealt with online, but you haven't met, that you would like to meet at the Fantasy Football Expo if you can make it?
Oh, wow. That's an amazing question. I mean, I have been to the Fantasy Football Expo twice in the past, but I was not there last year. So, I mean, I have had the good fortune of meeting a lot of the people, Scott Fish being one of them. Bob Harris is another one, these guys that I look up to. But Man, who have I not met that I'd really like to meet? That's a good one. That's a good question. I mean, there's so many people out there. I don't know if I can really answer that question with a single name, but I've had lots of positive interactions with people, especially, through Twitter or X or whatever you call it these days. Uh, and to me, that's what the highlight of the Fantasy Football Expo always is putting a face to, that Twitter profile, matching these people up. And I've gotten to meet, a lot of cool people already. Like I say, Andy Behrens was another one that was really fun to like meet and speak to even for a little bit. Marcus Grant. Yeah. I mean, you get to meet a lot of cool people, but I feel like the names that are coming to mind right now are more of the people that I have met than the people that I haven't met. So I guess I'm not really answering your question that well.
Tipp?
No, I love it. I love it. I mean, you're right. There's so many cool people. It's like, who the hell do you choose, right? It's like, if it's not like you're gonna offend anybody, but it's like, who do you choose? Who do you want to meet the most? So I will say this: when I first met you, Dave, I talked to you on Spaces on X, and it was on the Fantasy Football Dads show that he had, the space that he had. That was the very first time that I met you. And I was like, oh, this guy's cool. And I looked at his profile. I was like, oh, snap, Simpsons. I could tell that there may be a Simpsons theme going on with your picture. And then the Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool too. But, I want to know from you, like, who has been some of the people that have influenced you in this industry and how you got started in this industry. If you can kind of give us a little background as well.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Another good question. Some of the influences that I've had in this industry, were some of the guys, like Bob Harris is one of them that I mentioned. I mean, he's a total OG, and I've always liked listening to him, and following his advice is always a good thing if you like to win. But some of my like writing influences and stuff I've are people that like I've actually met in person and worked with at various sites. One of the guys that I really look up to as a writer is Bo McBrayer. He's Bo McBig Time on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's not like a real famous guy or anything, but he is a real good writer, and I love the way that he does it. And so he and I have interacted before and worked together before, and feel like I've learned a lot from him. How I've gotten started in this industry was I've been lucky enough to make a few friends here that got me positions, anywhere to post my my musings and what I'm writing about. So I've been really lucky that way. I worked for a small site to begin with called the Pregame HQ, and it was a free job. I mean, I wasn't really making any money, but I got the job just as an opportunity to get published, and that was really cool. And I've been fortunate enough to make connections like that, and it's led to my gig at 4for4 now, just from personal connections, really.
How long have
That's
you
awesome.
been for?
This will be my third season, so I guess the past 2 seasons. That's the answer to that question.
Okay, so who at 4for4? I tell everybody, I don't care how good you are at this hobby, you're going to be wrong 40% of the time. It's just that kind of an industry. You can't be right all the time. Yeah. Who at 4for4 do you respect most? Who is most likely to change your mind on a position that you've taken and written down already, but then they tell you something that says, oh, I didn't think of that? Because Bob Harris was that for me for years.
Okay.
There have always, Sam Kaplan for a while was that type of guy. Joe Bryant, I go way back. So, yeah. So who at 4for4 is, and I'm not saying it happens every day, but is most likely of your 4for4 compatriots to have an impact on your thinking?
It's probably John Paulson. He's on Twitter at 4for4_John.
He's been around a long time too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He knows what he's talking about. I love to read anything that he writes, and I love to watch him on the podcast. So, he oftentimes has differing opinions than I do. Not oftentimes, occasionally enough that it's noticeable. Yeah, and yeah, he can sell me on some people when I'm kind of not thinking that I like this player. He can kind of turn my opinion at times for sure.
Tipp?
Well, we are going to ask you about some players here pretty soon that you are looking at for this upcoming season. Now that we're getting closer to it, but I want to get two things from you. I want to get what has been the greatest, I guess, the best advice that you've given somebody that's come to you, for fantasy football advice. And then what was the worst advice that you gave them, or the person that you told them play him this week or play him for the next few weeks, and they crap the bed for lack of a better term. So what I want to hear from both of it, because this is interesting, because it could go two ways. It could go like, oh man, I remember when I gave this person this idea, and then oh man, I really messed up, and I really messed up their week or whatnot. So I want to hear from you on those.
Well, I gotta say the best advice that I ever gave anyone was it like in person, and this was before I was really even doing any fantasy writing of my own. I was just talking to a guy in a bar, and this was right before Lamar's MVP season. And I told this guy, he was about to do a fantasy draft at this bar. That's how we got talking about fantasy football, because they had their little board up and everything. And I said, hey man, Lamar Jackson, I really like him as a top 5 quarterback this year. And I mean, that was even way underselling it, because obviously he ran away with the position that year. But he's like, really, Lamar? And I was like, yeah, you should draft him. You won't regret it, And he was his draft position was pretty late. I think I got him in the 7th and 8th round of some of my drafts that year. For the guy that won the league, that's amazing value. The bad advice, there's probably too many to exactly think about right now, but I've been way too high on particular guys. I think I was way too high on Najee Harris this past year, even though it was kind of his best year. I thought he was going to be much better. And
this year he will be.
You think so?
He's got a quarterback that's going to extend drives. That's
right.
I don't care whether it's Fields or Russ. Either one is better than what he's had. So They will extend drives. And Najee's best year, I think, was his rookie year. I think he finished like 3rd amongst running backs his rookie year. Somebody asked who's going to be a breakout player this year. And I said, I don't think it's a breakout. But I really think if you look at the ADP for where Najee's being drafted, he's one of those guys that could way exceed his expectations.
Yeah, actually, yeah, people are way down on him right now. So it is.
Well, you got to look at the whole team. Okay. So now I promised people when they came onto the show tonight, we talked past, present, and future. And basically, we talked about your past a little bit. Let's look at present. You notice by my shirt, which you probably can't see because of my label, I'm a Michigan guy. All right.
I like it. Yeah.
Roman Wilson, J.J. McCarthy, and Blake Corum. I expect wide receiver 3 from Roman Wilson. I expect wide receiver 2 from Blake Corum, unless Kyron Williams goes down early. And then I expect Corum to be a running back 1. And I expect J to be right at that 10 to 14 area of quarterbacks, because the tools he's got are just amazing. I want you to tell me, am I crazy on any of those 3?
Crazy? No, I think you're a little higher on McCarthy than I am for sure. But but you're absolutely right as far as like he couldn't have gotten put in a better spot. He has weapons all around him, and so it's within the realm of possibility that he ends up with a 10-14 finish, but I don't feel that confident about it.
Well, you take him because you can get him so late. You take him as your QB2, and then
Yeah,
if
you
he
can
plays
certainly
it
draft
up,
him pretty late.
I thought the one that I was probably mistakenly the highest on was wide receiver 3 for Roman Wilson because he's going to be a third wide receiver on his team.
Yeah, that's
You think
true.
he could
I
be a
mean,
wide receiver 2 on that team? I mean, Pickens is wide receiver 1 for sure.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, I am a Steelers fan too, so I'm looking at this team as we need a person to step up and be the wide receiver too. And my next door neighbor is like you, a Michigan guy. He's really high on Roman Wilson. I didn't know how I didn't quite know how to react to that pick when they made it. I was pretty excited, but I didn't know how excited I should be. And he was like, dude, you just got to steal. Like, that could be one of the best picks of the draft.
I think
So,
JJ is a very good pick. Most people are down on him because he didn't throw the ball a lot in college. But when he was under pressure, and despite Michigan having the greatest offensive line in the history of college football, Roman Wilson, JJ was under pressure a lot. If you go back and you look at the tape, he was under the pressure a lot. Blake Corum did not have gaping holes to run through. He did a lot of lateral cuts inside the interior of the line and made people miss him. The line is good, but they measure lines based on two primary factors: yards per carry by the running backs and sacks allowed to the quarterback. And JJ's good at escaping pressure. He's, I think, second best in college football last year at throwing while on the run. He had a really like 72% completion rate throwing on the run. Roman Wilson, the year before it was Cornelius Johnson. Last year it was Roman Wilson. They're both good receivers, but the Steelers invested in Wilson, whereas the Chargers just picked Johnson up as a undrafted free agent. So I think the pathway is pretty clear for Cornelius Johnson to have an impact as a rookie, but I just don't know what they're thinking in LA because you got Jim Harbaugh there. We know Herbert's not going to throw the ball 40 times a game with Roman and Harbaugh as his coaches. So as Michigan players, I'm really high on Corum, and everybody thinks that he's faster than Kyron Williams. He's bigger than Kyron Williams, and nobody can tell me Williams has better vision than Blake Corum. Blake Corum's got the best vision in college football last year. You just have to go watch the tape. And too many people just base it on stats and don't look at the tape. You're a Pittsburgh fan. Are you looking at Wilson as the wide receiver 2 in that offense?
yes, I mean, hopefully that's where I expect him to, to find his spot. His speed is excellent.
Yes. And he's
Matt,
good contested catch guy too.
yes, for sure. Matt Miller, the draft scout,
Yeah.
he had a comp to Santana Moss. And I was like, oh, if he can bring a little Santana Moss style to the Pittsburgh offense, that would be, a welcome fit. That would really.
Okay, so Tipp's gone. So we're going to go to the future now. You're going to tell us this year is, for the majority of games, is it Fields or is it Russ?
I think it's Fields. I really do believe it.
I hope so. In my FCEs, quarterbacks went so fast because I didn't really 18 team leagues for the FCEs, the fantasy carry eliminators.
Yeah.
And there's no starting lineup. You can start 8 of any position. There's 8 starters, except quarterback, where you can start 3. There were people taking quarterback, getting 3, 4 quarterbacks. So by the third round, there were no starters left. So I went for Justin Fields, hoping that he would become a starter.
Yeah, I think that he'll start more games than Russ. I definitely think that Russ will get the opportunity. I mean, unless it's just obvious in training camp that Fields is playing better. I think Russ will get the first opportunity, and I can't see them pulling the plug on him with less than like 4 games unless he's just a disaster. But I think Fields is going to be putting pressure on him all season long, and I think Fields is overall the higher ceiling guy between the two of them.
I heard a quote from the coaches that said, even if Russ wins the job, Fields is going to get Taysom Hill style touches, which means he will line up as a Wildcat quarterback on occasion, even if he's not starting. So,
well, I'm sure you heard I think it was Jalen Warren that said he might even return kicks now with the new kick return rules, that Justin Fields might be returning kicks.
Yeah, but Fields has already said that's not happening.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if that's realistic, but
it's not real smart.
It wouldn't be smart at all, but
yeah. So until we get Tipp back, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing right now. What articles are you working on in the off season?
Well, I'm just getting started to do a little bit of player profiles for this upcoming season. I haven't. So I was just waving goodbye to my family as they're leaving. Okay. I haven't picked the players that I'm doing yet, as a matter of fact, but this is the time of year at 4 for 4 where we start doing those kind of articles. We're post draft and everything. So we're talking about player projections, things like that for the upcoming season. And so, yeah, that's where we'll be doing some of those. And then we'll do our player debates where we have different guys. It's either this player or that player, and each different writers from the staff have to take one side or the other and sell your guy. Why is that the guy? Those are fun. The little player debates. I love those.
Tipp is up for 2.
Oh my God. Look, guys, I was lost in space somewhere. Can you guys see me? Okay, am I back? All right, I was lost in space. We are back, man. Yeah, that's one of the things that happens whenever you're on the phone and your Wi-Fi kicks in, but your Wi-Fi is acting up right now. So, but yeah, you guys are talking about player debates. I know, right? You guys are talking about player debates, right? Different players. Who is a sleeper player for you this year, and who is a player that you're avoiding this year? You already talked a little bit about Najee Harris, how you were off on a year on him. But who is some players that you're looking at as far as sleepers, and then one player that you are fading?
Any particular position or just in general?
Just in general.
Up to you.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple of players that I'm a little higher on than others. One of the guys one of the things that I try and do every year, because I like to go a little later on quarterback than some. So I always try and find a quarterback that's, a little further down the rankings that I really think has a chance to be, top 5 or whatever. So looking at the quarterbacks this year that I'm trying to, plant my flag on one of them, I'm very interested in Caleb Williams in Chicago, because obviously the fanfare, the number 1 pick position. But yeah, I think that he's set up for some success in that offense. I really like the overall offense. So I think he could be one of the guys that I'd be targeting here later in drafts, because, his average draft position, I think they have him going around quarterback 14 right now at most sites that I've seen. But I think the safest bet that's deeper down the list is Jared Goff, because the Lions were really good.
I knew you
were $200 million man. Yeah.
And well, I mean, the Lions were really good this past year, and Goff outperformed his ADP last season. I think he's set to do it again, because it looks like he's at quarterback 13 at most sites that I'm seeing, right around quarterback 13. And I think it's almost a safe bet that he finishes as a top 10 quarterback. I think he could finish as a top 5 quarterback if he has the right season, but he'll finish above ADP.
You're not concerned a little bit?
Concerned a little bit about what exactly?
with concerned a little bit about him not his non-rushing ability. I know. Look,
that he doesn't
want
add
him to score
anything with his
touchdowns, right?
legs.
You want him to throw touchdowns. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you like the quarterbacks that add something with their legs because it feels like free points, But I just feel like with the offense around him and the overall touchdown production that they could have as a team, he could easily lead the NFL in passing touchdowns. I mean, it's not a crazy thing to say that Jared Goff could lead the NFL in passing touchdowns.
JMO should be better this year. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They got Donovan Peoples-Jones to take the place of Josh Reynolds. They got one of the best young tight ends in the game. They got one of the best receiving backs in the game in Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes. And Amon-Ra is the sun god.
Oh, yeah. He's legit. Yeah. He's absolutely
No, he's
legit.
Definitely got some weapons behind him, for sure.
I
like that take.
Go ahead, Tip.
No, I said I like that take on leading the league in touchdowns. I like that. I think, 30 plus, 35. I don't know about 40, but 35 is somewhere anywhere between that 30 to 35 range should be pretty easy for him to do, as long as everybody stays healthy, as long as he stays healthy. That offensive line is one of the best offensive line in the league.
For Goff, not for Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
Caleb Williams is not getting 30.
Oh, no,
not 30 passes.
For Goff,
you mentioned you like quarterbacks. Just a second, Tip. You mentioned you like quarterbacks that you can get later. I actually did a poll the other day. I looked at 4 quarterbacks that are ranked relatively closely. In fact, QB 14, 15, 16, and 17. Tua is 14. Average draft position is 97. Okay. Caleb Williams is 15. Average draft position. Now, how this happened, I don't know, but I got this off Fantasy Pros. So his draft position is 96, whereas Tua's is 97, but their ranking is reversed, 14 and 15. Then you got T-Law. Okay. T-Law, average draft position 100, quarterback 16. And Kirk Cousins, 109, quarterback 17. Now, for a redraft league, I'm all over Cousins.
Yeah, as I say, Cousins is a tasty,
109.
That's a tasty ADP for him.
But for a dynasty league, are you taking Williams over Tua and Trevor?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Trevor has proven his mettle. And Caleb is still what if. Now, I'll say this. I'm on record as saying that JJ will be the best quarterback, rookie quarterback this year. And I believe it's because of where he fell out in the draft. I thought the best quarterback in the draft was Drake May. I thought Caleb was the third best quarterback technically, but I'm a Michigan fan and I've watched every Michigan game for the last 3 years. And 27-1 record resonates with me. 7-5 record also resonates with me.
Yeah.
I realize his defense sucked. Caleb Williams' defense sucked. But I heard generational talent thrown about for Bijan Robinson for 2 years, and I've heard the same thing for Caleb Williams for 2 years. And I just don't think there are that many people that are generational talents. Derrick Henry is the last guy I would call that.
I mean, for the record, I hate that term because Kyle Pitts is a generational talent too, right?
And, yeah.
I mean, these guys,
rookies struggle. It's a different game. The NFL.
I guess if what you're saying is talent, like that's different than production, maybe.
Well,
if you're telling me these guys are generational talent, yeah, maybe so. Generational producers,
generational talent has to lead. Has to not only lead his team, but he's got to lead statistically too.
Yeah,
and you don't play a Tyler Algiers 40% of the snaps if you've got a generational talent in front of him. You just don't do that.
True, although that was some bumbly coaching, which
Well,
that's
it
one
was-
thing as a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
I wasn't really excited when they said they were going to hire Arthur Smith because
Well,
I'm
Arthur
not
Smith was
impressed
a
with
good
his-
coordinator in the past. He just wasn't a good head coach.
Yeah, and it's and it's a different job. The head coach is the CEO.
Yeah.
Offensive coordinators are actually coaches, but yeah, I get it, and I hope that Arthur Smith can be a little bit more like how he was with Tennessee. Where he has a dominant rushing game and an effective passing game, and brings that to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That would make me happy. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I hate the term generational talent. It gets thrown around way too often. And
Tipp, what do you think about generational talents? Who in this draft was a generational talent?
I think the only one or maybe two guys I would say would be Marvin Harrison Jr. and maybe Malik Neighbors if everything falls in line, if Daniel Jones gets his thing together, maybe. But I mean, other than that, I don't throw that term around loosely like some other people do. I like Caleb Williams. I think he's going to do well. I don't think he's necessarily going to be the guy this year, possibly next year. But then again, with the team that they put around him, he could easily have a really great season. But when Greg was talking about those other three quarterbacks, Tua, T-Law, and Kirk Cousins, besides Kirk Cousins, I would definitely take the other two in front of Caleb Williams. The only reason I'm not taking Kirk Cousins right now in front of him is just because I want to see how healthy he is. And that rose a red flag whenever they picked Michael Penix Jr. up. When they picked him up in the draft, I was like, oh, okay, how far along is Kirk Cousins?
You're worried about Kirk Cousins because of health, and I understand that. But what about Tua? I mean, how many concussions has that boy had?
Too many.
Well, yeah, but last year he proved that, hey, I don't know. He did MMA the year before that. He did a lot of different things that he was doing to try to improve brain functionality. And it worked last year because he was on the field the whole time. I mean, whatever he did the year before or the off season before, do it again this off season. They are getting older, but they still got a lot of speed on that team. So I still like Tua. But I think Goff is going to be, out of those that we've all talked about, I do definitely agree Goff. But I would actually put Trevor Lawrence in that category too with Goff, because Trevor Lawrence, he will run with the ball. I know they don't do it a lot, but he can. And then I like the fact that they got Brian Thomas too. I think that's going to help that offense a lot too. I like him.
I like that guy. Yeah.
Talk to the future. Talk to the future, Dave. Is Deontay Johnson? You're a Pittsburgh fan. Is he going to make Bryce Young a viable quarterback in super flex leagues?
Yep.
Yes.
So he's going to be top 24, maybe not top 12.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not trying to say that Bryce Young is going to be a top 12 quarterback. Don't misunderstand me there. But yes, I definitely think he's going to be in the top 24 conversation. I think he could easily get into the top 20. And I don't think it's only because of Deontay Johnson. I also really like Leggett, the rookie.
New coaching staff.
Yeah, new coaching staff, which should really,
how do you
improve
have
his chances? But I mean, new like just more improved pass catchers around him.
How do you have a 4'3" quarterback and not roll him out? Yeah, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but he really didn't roll out much. It was mostly straight drop back passing.
Yeah, no, you're not kidding. Yeah, you can't.
And at 5'10",
short guy as a pure pocket drop back passer. Yeah, you got to have him on the move. Get him in places where he can get a better.
Go look at some old Doug Flutie tapes. He was and Fran Tarkington most effective when they were rolling out, doing bootlegs, when they got outside of the pocket, outside of the 6'8" lineman that you can't see over.
That's one of my dad's favorite little kind of jokey statements to say is Fran Tarkenton ran for more yards than any NFL quarterback ever. It's just they were all side to side.
but
funny.
he's a Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Since we're on the Bryce Young subject, I really, really like him this year. And Greg said it, the coaching staff. Look at what Dave Canales has done with Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith.
Yep.
I think that Bryce Young has the talent of those guys, if not a little bit more. Yeah, he may be a little smaller, but I feel like Dave Canales is going to utilize those bootlegs, those, get out of the way. Now, another thing I will say too, this offseason, the Panthers went and got 2 guards. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because I was talking to some people on Twitter or X, and they were saying that they want to kind of mimic what the New Orleans Saints did by having really nice guard play to help with that interior, so that way he can roll out. Bryce Young can roll out and get the ball to his playmakers, Deontay Johnson being one of them. So I think that the guards are going to be something that, because his offensive line was terrible last year, and I think that's going to help a little bit with Dave Canales.
Deontay Johnson gets instant separation, and that's what's important, because you can get the quick throws out that way. But just remember, before Dave Canales was the quarterback whisperer, there was another guy that had that title, and he went to the Giants, and I don't see Doug Jones improving all that much. You remember that, right?
You're talking about
Dabo?
Yeah.
You're talking about Dable?
Yeah, he was the quarterback whisperer the year before. Everybody was saying Dable's going to turn.
But you're comparing.
No, what I'm saying is a coach can help, a scheme can help, but if a quarterback is trash, no coach is going to change that.
Okay, that's legit.
Would you agree?
I do not think Bryce Young is trash, though.
I don't either. I don't either.
But no, and I was just
I don't think Daniel Jones is trash. I think he's calling Daniel Jones.
Oh, Daniel
Jones isn't trash, but he's a moderately successful quarterback with a big arm and good legs. But he's not great at reading the field. He's not great at last-minute adjustments. And the NFL is all about – what a lot of people don't realize is there are a lot of choice routes in the NFL. What makes Mahomes and Kelsey so great is they read each other. Kelsey knows whether to break left or right, and Mahomes knows instantly and puts the ball on him. Mm-hmm. You can't beat that. And I don't think Doug Jones has ever developed that kind of rapport with any wide receiver on his team, any tight end. And the problem is Neighbors is a great wide receiver, but Doug Jones is going to have to hit him deep more than you expect. Daniel Jones, sorry. But more than what you expect. We were talking about Flutie. I got Doug on the brain.
I know.
Yeah. But Daniel Jones is going to have to be very accurate on deep balls more than 4 or 5 times a game. And that you don't see that a lot. We don't have any Daryl LaMonicas in the league anymore.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, this is you. What do you think?
Try to keep the players that have been in the 90s or more. You guys
come up. This is awesome.
Dave, I'm old. I'm really old.
I know. I get it, but I like it.
Look. No, I'm just. I know Doug Flutie, Daryl LaMonica, man. We're getting old, buddy.
I could have gone with the snake,
but okay, so I do have. Oh man, not Kenny Stabler. Oh no, let's do it. I do have a question for you.
Yeah, not talking Jake Plummer.
Steelers fan.
Okay, what's your question, Tipp? You had a question.
I didn't know you were a Steelers fan. So no, you're good. So who do you want to be the quarterback of this team? Justin Fields?
You already told me that.
Wilson?
Yeah, no, I did already answer that.
Oh, was that when I was out?
Yeah,
was I already out? That's when I was
out.
You
know me.
Yeah, so
I'm not letting the Fields-Wilson question go unasked. So I asked that right away.
Well, Greg actually asked me
what was the answer?
Games.
He said Fields.
Justin Fields. So, yeah,
I think anybody knows football says Fields.
So that's not only do I want Justin Fields to start more, but I believe he will start more games than Russell Wilson this season. So, and I think he's the quarterback
Wow.
of the future for this team, at least the near future.
He's younger than Wilson for one thing.
Yeah,
He's got legs that Wilson doesn't have. He's got a stronger arm than Wilson.
Yeah.
Historically, Wilson's been better at making the decisions, but the last 2 years, Wilson's not been great in decision making. But somebody pointed out to me, fantasy wise, Wilson was a top 12 quarterback until they benched him. When they benched him, if you look at it, he finished like 13th by 20 points, and he missed 2 games.
Gotcha.
So he's essentially a top 12 quarterback. That's not terrible. It's not terrible, especially when you look at that Denver offense. So, speaking of the Denver offense, is Javonte Williams back?
Is Javonte Williams back?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so. I hope so because my mom likes the Denver Broncos, but no, I don't think. I'm kind of interested in, for dynasty purposes, I'm interested in Audric Estime. As a matter of
really,
fact.
At a 4.71 running back.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the fact that you can get him in, the 4th round of your rookie draft, probably. But I think
you can get him as an undrafted free agent.
Oh, I don't know. I see him going in all my rookie drafts, but
oh, do you?
Yeah.
Would you take him over Tracy in New York?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you think he has a better chance at significant snaps this year than Tracy does?
No, not this year. I wouldn't take him in redraft over Tracy if that was the question. But no, in Dynasty, I like Audric Estime, mostly for next year and going forward. I don't think he's going to have a giant impact this season.
They got to get a lot of 1st and goals from the 3 for Estime to have a great year. Tipp, you have something?
All right, so I missed the. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, I missed.
Tipp, you're breaking up and locking up again. You're choppy.
Hello.
Tipp. Yeah, you come in 1 minute and the next minute you freeze. You might want to step out and step back in, see if that gets the connection back. I want to go to you, Dave, before we run out of time. Explain what DFS is and if you have any strategies on succeeding in DFS.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do love DFS, but I don't know if somebody told you I was an expert at it. I'm not that great at it, but it is, one of my formats that I do enjoy playing. Daily fantasy, you can play on most major sites are DraftKings. DraftKings is where I play. That's what I'm trying to say. But you get to build your own team every week. It's the easiest, not easiest, but the friendliest fantasy format that there is, because if you brick your draft in redraft, or if you have injury concerns or whatever, Sunday might not look so good anymore. But with DFS, you get a new chance every week. And that's what I really like about it.
How do you build your team? Is it a draft? Is it a salary cap? Do you pick anybody you want?
Everybody has a salary cap value on DraftKings. So, they're going to set their price, and you have to kind of build your team within your budget. The way that I like to do it is you have to have a key stack in your lineup somewhere. The quarterback, it's usually the quarterback wide receiver, but you can do a quarterback running back stack or a quarterback tight end stack.
So I know what a stack is, but there may be people in the audience that don't. Serious fantasy, it's basically 2 players on the same team.
On the same team, yeah.
And it's not a handcuff. The difference between a stack and a handcuff is if I draft Kyron Williams, I'm probably going to draft Blake Corum later, so that if Williams goes down, I still have the starting running back who's a top 10 back.
Right.
That's a handcuff.
That's a handcuff. Yeah. A stack is in daily fantasy where you would draft, like say you So you drafted
JJ
Jared
and
Goff
Justin.
to be there you go.
JJ and JJ.
JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson,
Yeah.
You could go that way, but you might decide that you're not going to spend the money for Justin Jefferson because, I mean, as a
But
top
JJ's cheap.
the
That's
top
why.
level quarterback, as a top level wide receiver, Justin Jefferson is, higher echelon of pay every week. So you might not want to spend the money on Justin Jefferson in a given week. So maybe you're going to go like JJ McCarthy and TJ Hawkinson and do the quarterback tight end stack, Then you
Halfway
have-
through the season when TJ's back.
Yeah. But it's just an example.
Yeah.
But that is.
Do you ever stack a running back with the quarterback?
You could certainly do that. And
would you do like Jameer and Jared Goff?
Yeah, I mean that could definitely be a good one. It's also good. Like I like to do a running quarterback with a running back. So, you might do like a Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry stack.
Oh, that'd be pretty.
That could really,
I will say this though, Lamar Jackson last year did not run nearly as much he ran more to extend pass plays last year than he ever had in his past. If you go back 2 years ago and you watch Lamar, when he turned upfield, he didn't stop to throw. He just ran and he went quick. Last year, he actually stopped to throw. He looked a lot more like Josh Allen last year than he did Justin Fields.
Yeah. I felt like the designed run was a little less of an element in the Ravens offense last season than it had been in previous
Even healthy.
season. Yeah. I mean, that he's going to be able to gain the yards that he does because he's one of the greatest running quarterbacks that has ever played, basically. But you don't want him to, take an unnecessary beating. You don't want him to get too many hits. Exactly. Yep. So
Tipp looks like he's back. So let's try.
Okay. Am I back? Am I back from space? I'm telling you, I keep going into space, in and out. But
this is sounding pretty good.
And I know. I know we had the Russell Wilson, Justin Fields question already, but the Steelers, they got a tough schedule this year. Are they going to actually win all of their, or have a winning season like they've had the last seasons?
9 and 8. Are you talking about 9 and 8?
I definitely think they could, make
9 and 8 is possible. Do you think 12 wins is possible?
No, I mean possible. Yes. Is it likely? I would say no. But
not in that division. That's
the motto, and in the NFL is if you want to make the playoffs, you beat the teams in your division. So depending on how their division record shakes out, that's really going to be indicative.
It's Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Jacksonville. Is Jacksonville the other one in that division?
No, it's Cleveland.
Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Well, what do you expect from Cleveland? Is Deshaun Watson going to look like Deshaun Watson?
No,
do they have any receivers at all?
Deshaun Watson anymore,
Are you drafting Ford instead of Chubb?
No. I don't really like Ford, that much. And Chubb's going to be back at some point, right? When do they expect Chubb back this year?
I've heard
they
October.
really haven't.
I've heard October. I've heard later, and I've heard he'll never be the same.
Well, yeah, obviously, there's always going to be he'll never be the same crowd, but
yeah, but
I don't know. I guess if depending on where you could get Ford, it's not
late.
The craziest pick to make, but
and you're probably drafting an RB4.
Yeah, I could get along with Ford as an RB4, I suppose. The upside is legit if there's no Chubb all season, if Chubb's never becomes Chubb again, then Jerome Ford has a huge role automatically. So yeah, if you could draft him as an RB4,
about it.
See, like I've changed my mind right here on the podcast.
Well, that's why we discussed.
No, I might change your mind. No, I might change your mind here too because you got Foreman too. So Foreman's no coach now. We've seen what he can do in Carolina, what he can do a little bit.
Yeah, but Deontay Foreman's more of a third down.
For the fact,
yeah, Deontay Foreman's more of a third down.
the
Hey, listen, we're down to the last 5 minutes of the show. So, Dave, tell us about 4 for 4. Is it a subscription service? Is it free? What's going on with 4 for 4?
It is a subscription-based service. However, we do have a lot of free features, free articles that you can check out. Go to 4for4.com. One of my favorite things about 4 for 4 that is absolutely free is just the news ticker on the side. They aggregate player information from all over the place. And so you're going to see little tidbits about fantasy relevant players all the time, which means you're not going to miss, like, you didn't know this guy's going to be out of the game. And then on Sunday, you're like, I didn't change my lineup because I didn't know he was going to be out of the game. You're going to see that kind of news right there on the main page for free. And the article that I write during the season is a Sunday recap of, fantasy tidbits that you should know about. And that's for free. So that one, you did not have to subscribe to see my article in season, my weekly article in season. So
Tipp, close us out.
Hey, man, I know I've been having some technical difficulties, lost in space from here and there. But Dave, I got to tell you, man, I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate getting to know you, getting to talk to you these several times that we have talked. Really good content, really good information, guys. Please give him a follow. You want to give us your @ because I just see Dave Fantasy on there. Is it @DaveFantasy?
That's it, right? @DaveFantasy. Yep. So
I mean, he is
follow me there. I post links to my work through 4 for 4, so you can find my articles if you just are following me on Twitter.
And wait, are you giving beard advice too? Do you give beard advice? Because I need some.
I mean, I can get in the DMs for some beard advice. Yeah.
All right, there we go.
He needs to get rid of the gray. What's that? Gray be gone, whatever it is.
No, man, keep the gray. Embrace it.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, embrace that.
Dude, you're in your 40s. It's too early for gray. Us 60-year-olds have an excuse.
No, Greg, because I got to deal with you all the time talking about all these crazy Doug Jones and don't go 0 RB. I got to deal with you all the time, man.
Yeah, see, he's Dave. He's a believer in 0 RB. You're old school. Tell him how stupid that is.
Oh man, yeah, you gotta have a hero RB that's my favorite strategy. But yeah.
But I bet you drafted stud RB at one point in your career.
Wait, say that again?
I said, I'll bet at one point in your career you were drafting stud RB, where you did 2 or 3 in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Oh man, it used to be when I first started playing. It used to be almost a given that you were going to go running back in your first 2 rounds. That's what pretty much everybody did, or everybody that was good anyway.
That's right. Anyway, I want to thank you, Tipp. Thanks for persevering. It's tough when you have technical difficulties. Dave, thanks for coming on. You're welcome to come on anytime. If there's ever anything that Tipp or I can do for you, just ask. We're happy to. And to the audience, I got to tell you, follow Dave, follow Tipp, follow me if you want to, but follow these two for sure. If you have questions, anybody that's been in this industry for 10 plus years is a good person, because the industry will wipe out the bad ones. So Dave is a good person. He will answer your questions if you ask them. Be polite, be nice, and have a wonderful weekend.